Clark, talk to Larry, he'll know where this came from. So I tracked this, I'm not making this up, I tracked this guy Larry Clark down, same suit. And I was like, Larry, where'd this come from? He's like, well, now that you point that out, that's not fair, it's not equitable, we probably need to change that. It'll just take some time to get through the system. I've been working in this field for 30 years. I'm just like, seriously? Like, that's all I have to do is find Larry? You know, it's like, don't assume that people have this stuff worked out. You have humans trying their best to make the system function. If you find something weird, talk about it. Put it forward. Is this best for your community? There's no, like, I put Moses in here for a reason. God isn't going to come down and strike you if you change your assessment policies a little bit, if you start having conversations about it. So talk about it, because it does affect your community. So this is your land value per acre model of your community. Why is there just one dirt parcel in your downtown that's so incredibly more valuable than everything else? Shouldn't that be more like a plateau? It's all the same downtown. Again, things like that. This is looking at just some of the parcels that fertilize the soil under them. And remember, this is just dirt, no buildings. So zooming into your communities, maybe taking a couple of neighborhoods, looking at the West Ocala, it's coming in at about 53,000 per acre, and over in the historic district, it's looking at it's a couple of historic districts actually, but it's looking at 234. My first question when I looked at this, I look at it like a CAT scan, and it's if you do that, then why is the dirt in that historic district not uniform, right? It's all the same district, so it should all be the same value per acre. It's all the same access and neighborhood, because you see that on the west side, it's more uniform, right? So just, again, use these as maps to have a conversation and learn more about your community. Okay, so now talk about what you saw in the model. Think of it as just a big bar chart laid on a map. These are the actual images in the bar chart. So everybody's got a Walmart. Your Walmart's about $400,000 of value per acre. And I'll keep the Walmart down on the bottom of this slide right there, so you can see it compared to other housing types. So this is single family, detached, runs anywhere from $200,000 to $2 million per acre. But on average, your single family product is about $100,000 more per acre than a Walmart. When you get into multifamily, less than 10 units, we're between 900,000 and let's call it 1.2 million. But on average, it's about 300,000 per acre. And when you get into multifamily over 10 units, it gets to about 800,000. And condominiums, you're looking at about 800,000. But hang on a second, before we go past this, these are 500,000 an acre, and that's 5.8 million an acre. They're both condos, right? So how you use land has a value productivity choice. Or if I blow through your real estate and have surface parking lots and berms and buffers and whatever else, it's going to dilute the value. Density is more productive. So there's basically an incentive for me in the tax system to make low density, is the way that it works. But anyway, there's 800,000. So here they are stacked up. Your single family, multifamily. And again, this is countywide. I would take this information and go next level from here forward. Look at your different neighborhoods in your community this way. But we couldn't resist John Travolta's house, by the way. He's not here, is he? So he's out at that Jumbo Air thing. That's his house with his jumbo jets. That's really cool. And we grabbed this house on 16th Court in West Ocala. So here they are side by side. Travolta's house is about 20 acres, and that doesn't count the whole runway and all that other stuff. But this is just his section of that development, while she's on 1/10 of an acre on the right. The tax value, his property's worth $2 million in value. Hers is worth $145,000. When you look at the tax value per acre, it looks like this. So again, as county taxpayers, who's more productive? Jumbo Air or the West Ocala neighborhood? This joke might not work for most of the audience if they don't. It's a long time ago. Vinnie Barbarino. So we grabbed a couple of other neighborhoods to compare them, West Ocala with the 21st Street neighborhood. And in this case, we're just grabbing the same number of houses to see their imprint in what they take. So we have 47 houses on the left and 47 houses on the right. The average value of the houses in West Ocala is about $93,000, while the average value in the 21st Street neighborhood is 200 and, where's my cursor? There you are. 262,000. 47 houses. On the right, it takes up 31 acres. On the left, it takes up 8 acres. So the average unit per house is a sacrifice that folks in West Ocala take by taking less footprint, but they're actually more productive at $1,000 of city taxes per acre versus $890. So again, as we look at real estate and understand how we're using it, again, this raises questions of equity, it raises questions of fairness, but it also, just do the math and be aware of this stuff. And is this what your community wants? So just for fun, we're like, well, what if we just develop West Ocala, or the 21st Street neighborhood, the way that West Ocala had developed, and let's see how many people we could fit in the same land area. And it's 177 units would fit where 47 houses take up a footprint. Or another way of looking at it, here's the current value of the 21st Street neighborhood, about $6 million. If it was developed as West Ocala, with that house, it would be $34 million on the same territory, the same real estate. So just be aware of these patterns that we've put down, how we've developed over time. There's results economically of what we deal with today because of it. So it's about, you get about 6 times the value out of it. So under the commercial, your mall is about $900,000 of value per acre. And again, that's double the Walmart. You can see the Walmart down there, it's still on the slide. So that's double the Walmart in productivity. A bunch of boxes here running from $400,000 to $2 million. Who would have thought that this thing is twice the value of the mall? But it is. 2.2 times. And then you get into this commercial stuff. And we start at like 7.3 million. I love O'Malley's, by the way. I mean, that thing's awesome. Was that like 8 feet wide? It's like, I mean, think what you can do with little buildings, make an incredible impact at 5.1 million per acre, 4.7, and then these last 3 are 4.4, 6.9, and 9.4 respectively. That's all like just 2 blocks away from here, right? So on average, your Main Street stuff's averaging 5.7 million an acre. And industrial, it is what it is. I mean, these are not that valuable buildings on a productivity standpoint. They're just really big boxes, but you need that stuff to produce jobs. So just be aware of that. So your average for industrial is about 300,000. And it's just, that's not surprising. It just is what it is. But be cautious about how much of that you chew through in your community and make sure you're getting jobs that come with it. Back to the final is mixed use. You have, for some reason, these little houses are put in the mixed use category. They're really just houses that were converted to office. So this is more, should be commercial. But these are true mixed use buildings where you have one use sitting on top of another. On average, your mixed uses are pulling at about 2.6 million per acre. But within those are these older buildings. So this is just a couple blocks away from here being rehabbed. Right now it's pulling 3.4 million an acre. What will this be when it's done? It's going to be incredible from a productivity standpoint. So from a bang for the buck standpoint, you can yield a lot of juice from that squeeze on that one. But let's not forget what your great grandparents left you. So here you are. That's your downtown right there. That's back when you had horse technology. They built these buildings that lasted over 100 years. And this one right here is pulling 16.7 million an acre out of that. That's the biggest producer in your community. That's the most potent building in the model by far. Not just heads and shoulders above it, it's like miles above it. When people look at our models, they often say, well, Joe, you just want to have skyscrapers everywhere. I'm like, no, that's not true. I mean, is that a skyscraper? Like, these little buildings can be highly, highly potent. So just to compare your downtown against the Walmart, that's your downtown, just a couple blocks of it, and that's about 10.4 million. Your Walmart's at 10.8. So to make your downtown equal the Walmart, we added some O'Malley's, 2 O'Malley's, and you could, so they are right there. That's all you'd have to add to these 2 blocks to make it equal all of that in land productivity. So I can't get away from your O'Malley's. Sorry, it's one of our favorites. We also have this tool on our website. It's free to use. Y'all can go in there and just put any two cities side by side to compare them. So this is the mall side by side with your downtown. So on the left you have 3 parcels. On the right you have about 125 parcels in your downtown. So you just get more stuff in your downtown, which means more productivity for a lot more people. There's a lot more individuals that can grow wealth than just 3 property holders. But when you look at the acres, the mall is about 61 acres, your downtown's about 44. Your total tax value on the mall and the 2 out parcels are about 50 million. Your downtown's 73 million. So per acre, your downtown's 2.3 million while your mall area is about 0.8. Does that all make sense? So just to float, that's the boundary of your mall. That's it floating over the downtown. I like doing this because, like, let's say you get the Rockstar parking space at the mall, and you walk through the mall, you go to the food court, you hit all the boxes and walk out. Let's lay that over the downtown. That's your path walking through the downtown. So for somebody that says they can walk through the mall, but for some reason they have a hard time walking a block in the downtown, it's like, come on now. We've been acclimated to basically a certain condition, and we've forgotten about our downtowns and the benefit that you can get. So just to close, this is like looking at all the slides. I call this a Brady Bunch slide. It's across the top we have residential, low density, medium density, high density, commercial, and mixed use. And this is just a roll up of the slides that you just saw earlier, just so you can see like the reduction sauce of the whole thing. And this is how it stacks up. So basically what we've learned from Ocala is your mixed use stuff, particularly the higher density stuff, really jumps up, which is a lesson that you could have all over your community. It doesn't necessarily have to be just in your downtown. You can have baby versions of downtowns around your community as well. So here's, oh, by the way, we have an office dog. Her name is Juno, and I'm not making this up. She gets her Chewy stuff from your fulfillment center, so she's really excited about this. But there's your fulfillment center with your Amazon. They're really not that productive, but they are what they are. These are a typology that usually follows highways because they're distribution centers, mini distribution centers or hubs. And then here's just your different buildings from the model shot. So this is, again, same information, just seeing the images on a map, if you will. And then your downtown and what's going on in here. And when you look at your downtown this way, you can really start to see how it drops off down here, just walking a block or 2 out of the core, how much it drops off. So that's, again, an opportunity that you already have these examples in your community, just do more of them, if that makes sense. One of the things that we notice with your growth, your county is going through a massive growth spurt now, but your city went through that growth spurt in 1960. And maybe this is a lesson for the county. What could you learn from, Ocala is really essentially the grandparent to the county because it's already been through that growth spurt from 1960 to 1980. So we just mapped your buildings. These are the buildings that predate 1900. So you have some pretty old buildings here. That's their productivity right there. And then this is from 1900 to 1920. You see that productivity drop in half. This is from 20 to 1940, so up to World War II. Then after World War II to 1960, 1960 to 1970, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and then the most recent trend. So you see this kind of like saddle where you're doing some better stuff now in this last decade. Learn from that. What can you do more of? But also you see that split that happens in the 1960s. You grew by population, but you didn't grow by value, if that makes sense. You spread out, basically. So this is, again, showing that break in the amount of land area that was pre-1960 and then post-1960. So the city really did swell out to about 2.5 times the area and growth post-1960. The city annexed a lot of land. So pre-1960, you average about 500,000. Post-1960, it's a little bit more than half that, or 300,000. We're just throwing these numbers out there so you can be aware of your development patterns. And then finally, like your land use of how you use land. You actually do have agriculture in your city, which is kind of wild. Again, remember that you can rent a cow. I just wonder about those 3 parcels. Are those really farms, or are they exploiting the tax break? I don't know, but you could ask that question. This is your industrial. Your single family is about 20% of your community. Your commercial, your vacant. I know that I'm flying through all of this stuff, but it's going to make sense in a second. I'm just showing you where everything is. So basically, your single family dwarfs your multifamily in footprint, right? But when you look at the value, so here's single family, it's about, it's 19% of your footprint, it's 33% of your value. So it's about a 1.7 growth in value from footprint. When you look at multifamily, it's 3% of your land area, it's 11% of your value. So it's a 3 times growth in value. A lot of times people have biases. They're like, oh, multifamily, that's low wealth, that's not producing in our community. It's actually highly productive. And on top of that, those folks can't get the homeowner exemptions and all the other benefits that homeowners get. So just be aware of that, and just, be mindful that those are producers in your community. So into the CRAs. CRAs are done for blighted conditions or issues that you have with your community. This is one of the worst case ones that we've seen. This is South Bend, Indiana. We did this for Pete Buttigieg when he was mayor. But basically, one of the things that he was doing is they were tearing houses down because they were losing population. So anybody that's lived in the Rust Belt, you've seen something like that. I grew up in Rome, New York, where we experienced it. But when you tear houses down, you have the same amount of pipe, road, water pipe, sewer pipe, stormwater to all 3 of these properties, yet the middle one's producing 2 times the taxes on 50 feet that the others do, right? So the one on the far right only has 1 house producing, the middle one's got 2, and the vacant one has 0. And Mayor Pete was like going nuts, tearing down all of these properties. And we're like, dude, you're just digging a hole deeper. You'd be better off just selling a house to a college student for $1 and getting a taxpayer there, which is actually what they did in Buffalo to start to turn Buffalo around. So y'all have about 11% of your city is in vacant land. So you're all paying for the pipe, the stormwater, the garbage truck that has to go by. You're paying for it, and that property owner isn't contributing that much in taxes for that land vacancy because there's no building on it, right? So just make that a priority. As a community, target that as an opportunity. You have 3,400 acres of vacant real estate. Inside your CRAs, these are the vacancies per CRA. So here's your North Magnolia CRA. You have about 37 acres. West Ocala, you're looking at 500 acres. East Ocala, you're looking at 130 acres and 13 acres in your downtown. So, just be mindful of getting stuff on that land and active as possible. The other computer question that we asked was, is the dirt worth more than the building on top of it? So just because it's not vacant doesn't mean that it's not upside down. So financially, if I had like a dead Dunkin' Donuts or Jiffy Lube or something like that, it's not a contributor. There might be a building there, but it's empty. So you have 709 acres in your CRA. You have another 387 acres that are essentially financially upside down. So I would prioritize all of those. Y'all know CRAs, what they are and what they do? Anybody not know? Basically, it's a redevelopment tool that's empowered in the state of Florida to do redevelopment. This is kind of nerdy to do this time at night, but I'm just going to show you that we did them. I'm going to recommend that you just get the PDF and look at these, but this is your West Ocala CRA, 10% productivity, 13% value productivity of land of 1-to-3 ratio. These are all imperfect because they're all different weird boundaries. You can see this one looks like a reverse letter E. It's kind of arbitrary as far as the shape of the boundaries. This is North Magnolia, it's a 1-to-1. East Ocala is a 1-to-1.4, and downtown is a 1-to-4. Again, no perfect numbers here. When you look outside of the CRAs, it's about what some of your CRAs are. So it's no more productive. It's just a different territory. And then here's the stats from taxable, non-taxable, and the average value per acre of each of these. 279,000, 345, 367, and then 1 million on the far right, downtown. And then these are the top producers in each of them. Surely you could do better than the Advantage Automotive in North Magnolia is the big winner there. So again, find opportunities to create jobs, but also use your leverage as a CRA to make activity happen in those neighborhoods. But be mindful of displacement, and then it will cause gentrification. Just to tell you, that was a big broad brush on the revenue side. We did this, it's more of a light brush on the cost side to see how the costs look against your revenues. And I'm going to turn you into a little bit of weird stuff here. I don't know if y'all know this, but municipal governments list roads and pipes as assets. And whenever we sit down with a finance officer, the first thing I ask them is, can Ocala sell their roads to Gainesville? No. Like I can have a computer, a van, or an office. I can sell you all three of those. Can you sell your streets? No. So it's a liability. So when you look at your books, and this is standard for most municipal governments, you really don't see the full liability that you're carrying because it's seen as an asset. So when you buy a road or get a road from a developer, if I build you a road, you're stuck with it forever. So I'll build a subdivision, put a road through it, break it down into the 150 parcels that I'll sell you all the houses, and the cost of the road's going to be baked into your mortgage. Then I'll turn around and give the road to the city, and the city's stuck with it forever, right? So again, this isn't to badmouth developers. This is just how real estate development works when you build a subdivision. So every 10 years, you have to resurface that road. You have to do what's called millage. You scrape off the top and fix it. And then after that fourth cycle is a full reconstruction. Then you get to start it all over again. So that first cycle of infrastructure life cycle is what we're focusing on. So if I do real estate development, if I own this building as a real estate developer, I know those air conditioners that are off in the back there cost me $60,000 a pop. I have to charge rent to pay to fix that air conditioner 15 years from now because that's when that air conditioner is going to junk out, right? So that's what happens with the life cycle of the air conditioner. Do the same with your roads because they last forever, right? You're stuck with them forever. This is another joke, sorry. So you have about 377 miles of roads, 654 miles of water pipe, 444 miles of sewer pipe. Notice that they're all different because they're all different services and they have different ways of functioning. Your stormwater is about 383 miles. So here they all are stacked up and laid on top of each other. This is your commitment to that land to make it worthwhile to have revenue on it, right? So this is what your promise is. You fulfilled your promise in that infrastructure. You have enough roads to go from Ocala to East Point, Georgia. I don't know if you know that. So every 50 years, you have to build a road to East Point, Georgia. Would you have chosen to do that 100 years ago? Would you have made that choice? And I would argue that your ancestors were never given that option. No one ever told them that. We just went ahead and grew and just did it. Your stormwater system will get you to Atlanta. Your sewer pipes will get you to Rome, Georgia, and your water system will get you to Asheville. So this is what your city is grappling with. And for folks that are out in the county, do the same analysis for the county and be aware of what you're growing into out there. So this is just how they stack up in their annual life cycle costs. These are the numbers that we worked with for the analysis. And then here's how it looks from what you are spending versus what you should be spending. So this is what you're spending in your systems on, come on now, on the left here, and this is what you should be spending. So you're essentially carrying an operating deficit of $76 million. So when you see that a road isn't in good condition or that you don't have a sidewalk in a certain spot, or maybe you hear about a water pump failure, it's not that the city isn't doing its job, it's just that we don't have the capacity and money put in the right place because you aren't collecting it. That's the reality of what you built. There's a great old colonial barb where people used to say, don't tax me, don't tax thee, tax the fellow behind the tree. We're a country of tax evaders, folks. What did we do when they taxed our tea? Threw it in the bay, started a revolution. You know, people don't like to pay for taxes. That's cool, that's human. But you bought stuff. You got to fix it. So I just want you to know this is not unique to Ocala. This is a condition that we have in our country about how we view government and land use, and it's kind of naive. So we went ahead and added in that loss into the system. So here's your money coming out of the ground. So this is the revenues. If you think of this whole city as a boat, This is what's above the water, and what's below the water is the sunk cost. And so your net position is a net deficit, but not for everywhere. Some properties are paying more their share into the system. So this isn't to say, this is again a community choice y'all can make. It's not to turn around and tell everybody they have to be net neutral, because you're going to want to subsidize certain things. A school, affordable housing, a park. Those are things that you need to buy down for community services. At what trade-off? So just make sure you can afford it. So this is just showing you some of those examples. And finally, some growth projections. Taking all of the vacant lots and saying, what if you prioritize those vacant lots? Right now, this is the value of all your vacant lots, about $10.3 million. If you just dropped this house, a $300,000 house, if you just tomorrow voted, we're going to do whatever we can to fill every vacant lot with a $300,000 house, come hell or high water, you'd go from 10.3 million to 78 million. So you'd add 1,300 more houses, and you'd grow 758% more of your revenue. This would also help solve the housing problem if you're having some. Does that make sense? So here's how you can just put this stuff to action. In downtown, we just went ahead and grabbed, these are nothing to write home about, they're just surface parking lots or underdeveloped real estate. If you prioritize those, that's 8 acres. Its current value is 1.2 million. And we just dropped these buildings on it. So nothing huge. You know, we're not dropping skyscrapers, there's just some random buildings, we just added them on there. So this is the new value that you'd get on that. You'd get up another 22 million in property value on top of your 138. And here's where they'd pop up. So 16% growth. Not as productive as the housing, but still a production. So we just ran those models for you. Oops, sorry. It's just so you could have it. And I know that I've gone long, and I want to wrap it up now. So this is a lot of information. These are a lot of different examples. I threw a lot at you. The takeaways that you have now are definitely focus on your Purple Mountain, your stuff in the downtown. Grow more of that. Look at the vacant land as an opportunity. Look for productive examples of things that you already have in your community, and just do more of that. You don't have to transplant Tampa or Orlando here. Little buildings can have a big punch. Think about the long-term effect for future generations. Think about your grandkids and what they can yield, that long-term investment is worth the wait and worth the gain and worth the effort. You'll get more out of it. Also start a regional conversation. This is Marion County. I know that there's several county people here, and this is Rhode Island at the same scale. You're bigger than Rhode Island. The thing that blows my mind is you have 5 cities and towns in this county, and Rhode Island has 39 cities and counties. So you've grown out, but what are you growing? Is it just a suburb of Ocala that just happens to be in the county? Or are you growing places that can stand on their own 2 feet? Are you investing in areas that have their own downtowns, or their own core areas, their own mix of housing? So just be mindful of that. As you look outside your county, just think of, you're adding people, what are you adding? Is a question I wanted to leave with you on that. And remember that the infrastructure is forever. You've got to keep on paying for this stuff. This is a lesson that the county can learn from the city. The city's already had 100 years, 200 years of head start in all of this stuff. What kind of heart attacks has the city had that the county can learn from? Because this is what the city's dealing with. And we call this geo-accounting. We're going to put it on a map so you can see it. So understand that your costs that you carry across your model, and know that they have consequences. So look at as you go forward planning, view this like a radiological report. What's your surgery going to be? So definitely do more surgery in your downtown, but there are other areas outside in you can add like neighborhood centers, so that you can have a coffee shop. Remember, little 2-story buildings could do it out there. And prioritize your infill. This should be your number one thing. So just to close, I don't know, y'all know this, that your city's worth $6.2 billion? So any city councilors in here, you're on the board of directors for a $6.2 billion corporation, your CEO is sitting over here. You could liquidate your community and buy a couple of Buccaneers. Your Buccaneers are worth $4.2 billion, so 1.5 Buccaneers. And I could tell you, like the owner of the Bucks knows Evan's towel bill. I know that the cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. You know the stats of things. right? Know the stats on your pipes, your roads, your asphalt. Have that be part